So thank you both for joining me today. I'm Eileen Moeller. I'm the director of Frozen River Film Festival, and so grateful to be joined by Scott Pollock, who is the director of the Minnesota Marine Art Museum here in Winona, and Lynn Melling, who is one of the directors of the film Freshwater. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having me. And yes, I'm in my mom's basement at the moment, so I apologize for the terrible lighting. All you film people in the audience are cringing right now, so I'm really sorry.
Well, we will make do, as many filmmakers do. So I thought I would kick things off today. One of the things that I really loved about Freshwater was just the sort of diversity of perspectives and relationships with the water that you portrayed or that you showed in the film. And I was really curious how do you take those disparate stories and assemble them in a way that has a sort of cohesive through line so that when the film's done, we're like, oh, I see how all of those fit together. What is that like?
Oh my, well, I'm so glad you bring that up because that to me is like one of my favorite parts of this whole film is the opportunity to talk to people from different points of view who all share a similar passion, which is Lake Superior and the health of Lake Superior. And we started this out as a surf, fun surf film. And then as we kind of progressed, we wanted to make it educational. And in the end, we were hoping that maybe we could trick some people into thinking this is a surf movie, and then they watch it and they learn something about climate change. But that's really my jam. I love in post, going out collecting all of these interviews and sound bites, and then in post, looking through the transcripts and weaving together the sound bites and just finding those through lines. And really, it's again, the main character of this film is Lake Superior. And so she made it really easy for us to kind of weave a story around, that beautiful resource that we have here in Minnesota. I guess, she's not all ours. I guess we have to share her with, Michigan and Wisconsin and Canada. But I just think the geographical space is so large that it really lends itself to finding a lot of people from different walks of life who all love it. So
Yeah, I can't say. I mean, you hit it on the head there, Eileen, and both Lynn. I mean, this is the magic of this film for me too. Walking away was like finding the connectivity between like the science, the recreation, and even the art, right? Like as a director of an art museum that's like really committed to, presenting great experiences inspired by water, right? Like this to me is I mean, one, Lynn, thank you so much. This film sort of just fits that like wholesale for us. And I'm so glad we're able to show it again. We had a great turnout for that first night. I grew up on the other side of the lake too, right in Canada, on the other side, east side. And I was able to dabble a little bit with my 6mm wetsuit and a surfboard, which has been always fun. So it was really nice to see and discover this culture over there in Duluth. How did you land on that particular community, and maybe explore a little bit about what's your relationship to that lake and that particular part of the lake?
yeah, so it was a total fluke. I guess to start, I was born in Duluth. And then my parents left when I was like 9 months old. They moved our family out of Duluth. For reasons I will never understand, but so I've always felt a big connection to Lake Superior, and something about, coming over that hill and you see the lake and you just, I don't know, for me at least, I have a lot of anxiety just in my day-to-day life. But when I come over that hill, I just feel calm. There's some kind of physical impact it has on me. And so we spend a lot of time up there, my husband and I and my kids. We love camping. We love the Boundary Waters. We're mildly obsessed with Grand Marais. We love it. And so we were up there one summer. I guess it was May. We were on a camping trip at Gooseberry Falls, and we were driving home, and we noticed these surfers in the lake, and we thought, that's cool. And so Ian, who's my husband and co-director, and he and I co-own 515 Productions, which is our video production company. And by the way, he wishes he could be here, so apologies. But he has kind of an action film action sports film background. He's done some Red Bull movies and a Dana Brown film about motorcycles, and he really has a passion for action sports. And so when he discovered that there's action sports in Minnesota, he just, his eyes lit up, and we pulled over and got some phone numbers of these surfers who were so generous to say, yeah, weirdo people that we've never met before, here's my phone number and call me. And we were put in touch with Eric Wilkie, who is kind of the godfather of surfing up there. And he was so gracious in inviting us to, every time there was a swell, Ian would get a text. Usually it was in the middle of a blizzard, but that's Ian's favorite thing, is to jump in the truck and drive through a blizzard up to Lake Superior. So we were able to kind of learn about the culture that way, learn about, make some friends, meet these folks. And that's actually really where we thought it was going to end. We thought it was just going to be this fun surfing video. And then over time, just kind of how it goes, it evolved into a bigger film.
I love it. I mean, you do tap into, the healing nature of art too. And I think that was a really powerful part of the film for me. I mean, that's where my emotional strings were just being tugged, and, understanding the connectivity or even the kineticness of a lake like Lake Superior, and being able to use that, or have that water body be a cleansing or a connecting or refreshing, right? Like, we use all those words interchangeably when we think about the lake, that feeling, like you said, when you go over the hill. I was just really, really appreciated how you were able to pull those different characters and connections in. But yeah, I mean, is other film projects you're working on coming up have to do with similar action sports, connectivity, climate, art? Anything out there in the near future we should be looking for from you?
Yeah, so we are kind of dabbling into our next big project, which is northern Minnesota based. We really love the outdoors. We love northern Minnesota. We love the Boundary Waters. We love Lake Superior. So we just have sort of naturally gravitated toward telling stories about trying to preserve these beautiful spaces. And so we were, I don't know if I can talk about it, but what the hell? we were as part of Freshwater, we got to know the executive director of the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation, who invited us up to a moose conference in Grand Portage in May. So it was amazing. It was a week long. We learned so much about moose and out on Isle Royal. So we're not quite sure where that's going yet, but we've collected a lot, and we anticipate that being sort of more of a longer term project. But there's not so much action sports there, but it's that just love of being out in the wilderness, being on Isle Royal, hiking, camping. But I think this idea of freshwater, we just, for some reason, just kind of keep coming back to places that are abundant in it. And we're so spoiled and really have this duty to talk about the importance of preserving and protecting it. So more to come.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That sounds fantastic. I can't wait to see what comes of that. So I have another question.
But whatever.
So one of the things that we notice a lot, especially when we get films submitted to us by emerging filmmakers that are trying to get out there, one of the greatest pieces of feedback that we as curators and also audience members have is often, this was great, I wish it was edited down a little bit. And I think that's probably what I've noticed anyway, can be a really difficult part of filmmaking, is sort of that willingness to kill some of your darlings, so to speak, as far as
kill the babies. Yeah.
Yes. Find a more concise way to tell the story, and sometimes have to let go to some of those pieces of footage or sort of side quests. So how do you choose what goes in and what has to be left behind? And specifically for this film, was there anything that you ended up leaving out that you still want to get out there somehow?
Yeah. Such a good question. So important. So I grew up in TV news. That's my background. I was a TV reporter. Ian was a photographer. That's how we met, newsroom romance. but that's one of the first things you learn is you got to chop, you got to, hit slot. You have to, make that story a minute and a half, no more, no less. And so I grew up learning how to chop. But I also, being in TV news, you have to learn how to be really efficient with your content and maximize every little bit that you get. Every crumb is valuable. So I'm a big proponent of using it somewhere else. When you get that content, don't let it go to waste. Whatever's on the cutting room floor can be polished up and turned into a tease. It can be turned into content that you release later as a follow-up. I just believe so strongly in repurposing all the gold that lands on the cutting room floor. But yeah, I think, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know there were some sound bites that, were fantastic for Freshwater that I wanted to include, but to your point, like it starts to drag on and you don't want to lose the audience. And yeah, I think this is a really profound soundbite, or it's funny, or it's cute, or it adds a little bit of, flair, but it's just not integral to the story. So yeah, there were a lot of back and forths with having to cut, but I think pacing is just such an important part of storytelling. And if there's a lull, if it starts to feel like it's dragging, like as much, even though a soundbite might be perfect or beautiful, if it interrupts the pacing, it's got to go. So yeah, it's so hard. The battle is real.
Yeah, I can imagine. Even when we've done really basic projects here at the festival, as far as like, okay, let's put together like a festival teaser or something like that. It always starts off way longer, and then you have to say, okay, well, we'll figure this out later. And even on a small scale, it can be really tricky to edit.
Yeah. But for filmmakers who find a lot of gold on the in the cutting room floor, like social media is a great place to put a quick, 30-second soundbite or whatever. If you're trying to promote your film, just because it didn't make it into the film doesn't mean you can't use it to tease it. A lot of times trailers look a lot different than the final product. That's for sure our case with Freshwater. The trailer was shot before we gathered half of the content that we ended up using in the actual film. So I would strongly recommend to filmmakers, use it, tease it, use it for your own personal brand building to, put yourself on a platform as a filmmaker. You can always find ways to use sound and video, even if it doesn't necessarily even if it's not in the film, it's still related and connected and can support the actual film.
That's fantastic.
Well, I have to thank you for, bringing this together. I think the two organizations, the Frozen River Film Festival and the Minnesota Marine Art Museum, right? Again, I can't, as a museum that's been committed to using the visual arts to connect people to water. We couldn't have asked for a better film to land on, Lynn, and thank you for your craft. And, it is that, right? It's such a great a way to get on the backside and see, all the different visual arts represented here at the museum. But film definitely is one of those things I think that people respond to. And there are so many great creators out there. And I really want to thank you both for being a part of that community and bringing that here to the Minnesota Marine Art Museum.
Oh, my pleasure. We're thrilled people like it. When you start one of these projects, you never really know if anybody's going to like it but you. So we're delighted that your audience finds it, entertaining and maybe educational. So thank you for sharing it with people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real pleasure. And as a presenter, I think it's always really exciting when we get a wealth of high quality submissions that are relevant to our audience on multiple levels. And this was one of those things. It feels local. The environmental piece is talking about things that, conversations that we are having in this community, and showing the diversity of ways in which people interact with the bodies of water. It's wonderful to have something that feels so Minnesotan, and really sort of centers us in the place. So we're not just a film festival that could be anywhere. We are a Minnesota film festival. So just as a presenter and curator. I really appreciate that piece of it. I have another question for you.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you don't mind. So
sure, I got all day.
So we, Scott mentioned, we're collaborating as organizations, and we see a lot of different artistic pieces that are put together by groups of collaborators, artists. I'm really curious what it's like to work with your life partner as a collaborator, and coming from different skill sets too. How does that play out as far as making artistic decisions, making compromises, and deciding, okay, we're done being artists for the day, now we're raising a family or whatever?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. It's, it's funny. Actually, I had this realization not long ago that Ian and I have been working together longer than we've been romantically. Like we were work partners long before we were romantic partners. So, I think that actually helps us a little bit because we got to know each other by working in the field and coming back and putting, doing exactly what we're doing now. That's how we started our relationship. And it was very much from the beginning, kind of that yin and yang. Like he was the, photographer, knows how to use the gear, knows how to get those beautiful images, has an eye for, what is translating on camera and in audio. And then I'm more of like the wordsmithy person that kind of goes back and puts it all together in some kind of a storyline that makes sense. So, but I'm not going to lie, there's challenges. We try to, we have like a status meeting a couple of times a week where we talk about this particular work project, and we have from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. to talk work, and then we're done and we move on. Or when we're on vacation, we have a rule, like we're not talking about work. But when what you're doing is what you love, it's, there's all kinds of bleed over. But I do think it's a huge blessing in the fact that we can be very candid with each other. I think folks who work in creative industries, who are partnered with people, it's film, it takes a whole team of people to be able to get something like that off the ground. And if you can't have psychological safety within those crews to be able to express an opinion or to disagree or to push back, I think that's such an important part of filmmaking in the process, is trusting your partners and feeling safe to express your opinion and feeling safe to push back and to disagree and to have that kind of candid conversation. I mean, there were a couple of arguments, Ian and I had. There's one soundbite in Freshwater that Ian hates, and I said, nope, it's absolutely integral to the storyline. We have to include it. So, and our kids are listening to us in the office arguing about this. But art is messy, and it's, you get so emotionally tied to it. But I think, building in time to appreciate each other and team building is so important. So for crews, film crews, it's just so important to show your appreciation for your partners, and to just make time to be human, not to always be in work mode.
That's just great advice all around.
And therapy is great too, I gotta say. Like, thank God for therapists.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I realized that was a very personal question, but I was
no,
just
not
thinking
at
about
all.
when you were talking about the process, I was like, dang, that's got to be really tricky sometimes. So I appreciate you being candid about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of it's kind of a taboo subject. I don't think people like to talk about. Sometimes filmmakers like to paint this picture that it's all hunky-dory and everybody's getting along and it's this fun, exciting process. And it's not. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It's a lot of hand-wringing. It's, so I think it's important to also talk about, like, this isn't all fun. For every win, you have 10 losses. But nobody talks about the losses. They only focus on the win. And so I think it's important for filmmakers to know, like, it took us a long time to do this. We've had a lot more failures than we've had successes. So that you grow from those. And so I think it's just, yeah, it's important for artists in general to feel okay with failure and to use it as an opportunity for growth.
And for organizations too, Lynn. That's great. Thank you for allowing us to enter that space, or Eileen for bringing it up, because it's exactly, we're so good at like opening the red curtain and walking down the red carpet, and like you're coming to the opening and it's all finished, but right, what's happened behind the doors? And that's what's lovely about doing this type of work, this conversation, Lynn. Incredibly cut film. I mean, super inspiring. You open the entry doors for so many different audiences, and those connections to the lake. It's just, I'm just super indebted for your work to do that, and then the hard work to put it together. So thanks for sharing those insights. You bet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's such a important piece of conversations about art making. And I know it's something that it's a discussion I've had with other creative workers, is just really being more open about the fact that artistic work, creative work is work. And that's something that I feel like Scott does at the museum, and that we try to do here, is really advocate for the artists with whom we work, to really try to be frank with audiences about what is involved, like what does it take to get here? Because I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, you like it, so it must be easy and fun all the time. And, everyone hates their job at some point. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
that
And I think with the being an artist and, filmmaker, there's so much vulnerability in putting your work out into the world. I mean, before the first screening of Freshwater, we'd shown it to 4 people because,
Wow.
we didn't really want a lot of feedback. Like we did, but at the same time, we just were like, we're doing this for us. But I had gone ahead and filled a 600 seat theater up in Duluth for the premiere. And it didn't occur to me until 3 nights before that, like, oh my God, people might hate this. This could be terrible. I mean, I was having crazy anxiety for like 3 days. I mean, not eating, not sleeping, because it just, it hadn't occurred to me that like, this could be bad. Like there's a very good chance that nobody will react to what we think is good. We think it's good, but it might not be. So I think there's so much, it takes so much courage to have, to make something, it's your baby, your art, and then just to put it out into the world. I mean, I don't know how artists do it. If, they have a gallery opening or whatever, just people are going to walk in the door and judge you. And this is your baby, and people are going to give you feedback, whether you like it or not. So I applaud any artist who has the guts to make something and love it and put it out into the world, to be torn apart or to be loved. Just the fact that you're doing it and you're putting out there into the world is courageous. And my hat is off to you.
That's really good advice, Lynn. That's really good advice. Is there, just thinking as we're sitting here chatting, and again, feel free to cut this, Eileen. We're going, and this is great. But I am curious, is there anything you're seeing, like what could organizations, or, what support structures could we be putting together to make filmmakers' lives easier, to make your craft more accessible, approachable? Is there, what should we be looking for from the film industry? Any trends that you're seeing that would be helpful for us to know? How could we support you?
Man, that is such a good question. And I wish I had an answer. I think, funding, it always boils down to funding. We self-funded Freshwater. We're very lucky because we have all the gear, because we own a video production business, and our client work has allowed us the luxury of having the time to do this on the side. But I know that there are so many filmmakers out there who do not have that luxury of either the cinema level camera or, the crew who knows how to light and do audio. So we're so fortunate. And I think education among the general public about the time and energy it takes to do a film, all the pieces, all the expense. Cameras are expensive. I mean, we have a camera that's worth way more than our house, and it, gives me a lot of anxiety, but whatever. but I think that there's just this idea that, oh, they're filmmakers and it doesn't take much to make a film, or I'm not a painter, but I have to assume, the expense of canvas and paint and just, the time it takes. So I think, I don't know. I know there's a lot of philanthropy, a lot of philanthropic organizations out there who do, grants, but again, that's really hard for artists to find. A lot of us don't have time to go look for where those grants are. So as I'm just talking out loud here, that's maybe an opportunity for organizations like yours to be able to highlight to artists like, hey, here are 10 grants out there that we know of that are available to you. Here are the parameters, here's the deadline, apply, and just encouraging artists to apply for it. Because I think that's something that, artists aren't necessarily business people. We wish we were, but we're not. So we're not really looking for, grants are kind of hard. It's kind of a hard world to navigate sometimes. Even like the film tax credits, I know that there was just this big, I don't know, 15, 20 million chunk of change set aside for film tax credits in Minnesota. I don't have the foggiest idea how that works. I should figure it out. I know that, but having folks like you, offering just advice on the funding part of it, and here are some options, here are some chunks of change out there that could help fund your project would be, I think, huge.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
See, I'm not even talking about freshwater or surfing, Eileen.
Oh, I mean, as you can tell, I live and breathe this stuff, so I'm super happy to talk about it all.
I'm so glad you asked that question, Scott, because it relates to something that we're working on, which is to actually have a fund set aside to assist with filmmaker transportation and housing to Winona to get to the festival, to talk with audiences, because I think for as accessible as a lot of pieces of art feel, like, you can watch a video online or whatever, and learn about it through social media, word of mouth and actually making connections with people still seems to be the most effective way to like get the word out. And for artists to meet with other artists, potential collaborators, that's something that we've heard from visiting filmmakers to Winona is, I love being here and I wish we could get more of us here. And that's something we hear from audiences too, is like, we want to talk to the filmmakers, we want to talk to the film subjects. And I think that a lot of folks don't know what a barrier it is to have the time and money to get here in the middle of winter and, stay here for a few days, maybe leave work or whatever the case might be. So perfect question, Scott. And thank you, Lynn, for talking about it.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great point about, transportation. It all adds up, every little bit helps, putting gas in the car. And if you're a filmmaker and you're trying to do the film festival circuit, like that is really expensive, and you have to pick and choose which festivals you want to go to. And I think making it, giving them the resources to get to Winona for the festival, that's going to help them decide, okay, that's the festival I'm going to attend because I'm getting support for it. So that's really smart.
Oh, thank you.
I know a lot of our audiences listening to this probably make their way up to the North Shore, right, pass through Duluth and head on up to Grand Marais or up to Grand Portage, which is it's just stunning and beautiful.
Yeah.
Speaking of transportation, okay, so do you have? I gotta confess, right? Like Stony Point is my stop. You take that dirt road, you go over where that little fish house is, and you take that little trail out to that rock. Right? There's nothing like it. I mean, it's just so special. And of course, great little break on Lake Superior. Did you find a spot? I mean, any place that you'd recommend we all make sure we pull off the side of the road and walk out to?
Oh my gosh, where to begin?
Right.
Well, for starters, I didn't discover Park Point in Duluth until like 5 years ago. I mean, for those who aren't aware, it's like a sandy California beach just across the lift bridge in Duluth. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. It's this beautiful sandy beach that you can swim in. I mean, it's cold. It's Lake Superior, but I can't recommend that highly enough. And I don't know why I never knew about it, but I didn't. So I'd start there if you're in Duluth. Yeah, I mean, oh, there's so many places. I mean, Tetegooch is beautiful. It's free. You know, you can, so there's a visitor center. So Tetegooch State Park has this beautiful trail. It's so accessible. I think that's a big barrier too, is accessibility for a lot of folks. And so Tetegooch is, you just turn off 61 and there's this great trail just right outside the visitor center. It's right along the lake. It's beautiful. So that's always, I think, a special spot and easy to get to. But then further up, gosh, oh, where do I, yeah, there's just so many, you know, even like Caribou Falls, you know, off 61, it's just another rest stop. It's just, there's a porta potty there, but then you go up the trail and it's this beautiful waterfall. And then further up the trail, you know, there's Devil's Kettle, which is one of our favorites. Mount Josephine is beautiful. It's outside of, or it's in Grand Portage. And also we recently discovered Grand Portage National Monument, which is a hidden gem. You know, it's a fort that was built during the fur trade back in, I think, the 1700s, and it's been preserved. And there's all kinds of artifacts from like 1,000 years ago, and talks about, you know, the birth of civilization, you know, when the fur traders came over from France and they met with the, you know, the indigenous people and the kind of this integration of lives, and they helped each other. And it's just, it's a really interesting story of, you know, in our nation's history that isn't told a lot, I don't think. So that's that. If you're a history nerd like I am, highly recommend Grand Portage National Monument. I could go on and on. Voyager's Brewery in Grand Marais, they have the Reuben egg rolls are to die for.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I asked for 1 and we 6, Eileen. That's pretty darn good. There's your short list. I'm looking forward to Guidebook by Lynn. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back through this video and make notes for next time I'm up in Duluth.
It's such a great place.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to close us out here, but thank you both so much for taking some time to chat with me, and Lynn for sharing some of the background about Freshwater. And I hope that you will be able to get down to Winona sometime. We would love to host you, and, you know, really have that connection with Minnesota filmmakers and being here in Winona. So thank you for your time, and
thanks for the invite. This is just, it's a delight. And I admire so much what you both are doing, and just, you know, you're such a huge resource for filmmakers, and you make it possible for us to do the work that we do, and then bringing an audience to us. So thank you for all the work that you do. Enjoy Freshwater. Hope you like it.